My name is Mark, and I've spent the last 10 years of my life building a comfortable existence with my wife, Sarah. We met in college, both idealistic and hungry for success. I was studying to become a writer, and she was pursuing a career in marketing. It was a classic love story, two ambitious kids who fell for each other over late-night study sessions and shared dreams of a bright future. We married shortly after graduation, and for a while, everything was perfect. Life had a way of throwing us challenges, but we faced them together, or so I thought. Fast forward to today, and the picture is much different. I'm sitting in my car, parked outside a cafe where I've just seen Sarah with someone who isn't me. I should have been at work, but something compelled me to check on her. I had noticed subtle changes in her behavior over the past few months: longer hours at work, late-night phone calls, and a growing distance between us. Today, all of those suspicions crystallized into a hard, painful truth, as I watched her laugh and flirt with a man who looked like he stepped out of a reality TV show. Charming, well-groomed, and entirely too interested in her. As I sat there, my heart raced, a mixture of disbelief and anger coursing through me. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I didn't need to. The way she leaned in, her hand resting on his arm, and the sparkle in her eyes made it clear that this was more than just a casual encounter. I felt nauseous. The betrayal settled in my stomach like a stone, and I realized I had been living in a fragile bubble, blissfully unaware of the cracks forming around me. I thought about the life we had built, the dreams we had shared. The vacations, the late-night talks, the plans for children. I felt like a fool. As I drove home, my mind raced with questions. How long had this been going on? Was I really that blind? My chest tightened with each passing moment, the realization of her infidelity gnawing at me. I entered our home, the silence echoing the void that Sarah had created in my heart. The next few days were a blur. I tried to confront her, but every time I opened my mouth, the words got stuck in my throat. I couldn't bring myself to accuse her outright, even with the evidence burning in my mind. Instead, I observed her more closely, searching for signs that would validate my growing suspicion. I noticed the way she smiled at her phone, the secretive glances, and the way she would rush to the bathroom to take calls. Each moment felt like a dagger to my heart, and I felt my anger boiling beneath the surface. As the days turned into weeks, I knew I had to confront her. But the thought of facing her, of hearing her excuses, made me sick. I wanted revenge. I wanted her to feel the way I felt, the betrayal, the humiliation. I thought about the man she was with, the reality TV producer who had stolen her affection. He was everything I wasn't: famous, charming, and seemingly untouchable. But I had something he didn't: the truth. I could expose their affair and turn their lives into a scandal that would make headlines. The more I thought about it, the more it consumed me. I envisioned the look on her face when she realized I had taken control of the narrative. The thought of her being publicly humiliated felt like a balm to my wounded pride. I knew I had to act, but how? What were the steps I needed to take to make this happen? I began to devise a plan, one that would ensure their scandal became the next big show. I could feel the anger pulsing through my veins, fueling my resolve. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a man with a mission, and I was ready to take back the power that had been stripped from me. The days following my discovery were a whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, and a desperate need for justice. I found myself consumed by thoughts of revenge, and the more I thought about it, the more I felt like a puppet master in control of my own fate. I began to map out my plan, each step carefully calculated to ensure that Sarah and her new lover would face the consequences of their actions. I started by gathering evidence. I had to be sure of what I was dealing with before I made my move. I followed Sarah discreetly, taking note of her routine and the times she met with him. I learned his name: Ryan. He was a producer for one of those mindless reality shows that I had always scoffed at, but suddenly it made sense why she was drawn to him. He represented everything that had become our life's opposite: excitement, fame, and a world where the ordinary was cast aside for the extraordinary. One evening, I parked near the restaurant where I knew they often met. I wanted to capture a moment, something tangible that would serve as proof of their betrayal. My heart raced as I watched her walk in, her laughter ringing out like a siren's call. I took out my phone, hands trembling as I snapped a few pictures through the window. It felt wrong, yet it also felt exhilarating. I was reclaiming my narrative one snapshot at a time. With each photo I collected, I began to feel a sense of power returning. I wasn't just a passive participant in my own life. I was taking charge, becoming the architect of my own revenge. But I knew that exposing the affair would require more than just pictures. I needed a strategy to ensure that this story would become the scandal it deserved to be. I spent hours researching local gossip columns and tabloid journalists who thrived on this kind of salacious content. I wanted to find the right person to leak the story to, someone who could amplify the fallout and ensure that it reached the right audience. After a few late nights of digging, I found a journalist named Claire, known for her knack for uncovering celebrity scandals. She had a reputation for being ruthless, and that was exactly what I needed. I crafted an anonymous tip, carefully detailing the affair and including the incriminating photos I had captured. The thrill of sending that email was intoxicating. I felt a rush of adrenaline as I hit send. I was no longer the victim. I was the one pulling the strings. I could only imagine the headlines that would soon follow. Reality TV producer caught in scandalous affair with married woman. But even as I reveled in my plan, a part of me hesitated. I thought about Sarah and the life we had built together. Was I really willing to destroy everything? The guilt crept in, nagging at me like an unwelcome guest. But as soon as I pictured her laughing with Ryan, sharing intimate moments that should have been ours, I felt my resolve harden. This was justice, I told myself. This was what she deserved for betraying our vows. The next day I waited with bated breath for the fallout. I kept my phone closed, refreshing my news feed every few minutes. Finally I saw it, a headline that made my heart race. Reality TV producer's secret affair exposed. I felt a mix of satisfaction and dread wash over me. The story had broken wide open, and I could only imagine how Sarah would react when she found out. As the hours passed, I watched the media frenzy unfold. Claire had done her job well. The details of their affair were plastered all over social media, and I could see the shock and outrage from the public. I felt a twisted sense of vindication as I read the comments, people expressing their disbelief and anger towards Ryan. It was all happening as I had envisioned, and yet a nagging doubt lingered in the back of my mind. I tried to prepare myself for Sarah's reaction, but nothing could have truly readied me for the storm that would follow. I could already hear the whispers of betrayal, the questions that would come. Would she confront me? Would she try to defend herself? I braced myself for the inevitable confrontation, knowing that I had set in motion a chain of events that would irrevocably change our lives. In the quiet moments of that day, as I watched the world react to the scandal I had orchestrated, I felt a shift within me. I was no longer just a man wronged. I was a man who had taken control of his destiny, even at the cost of someone he once loved. The line between justice and cruelty blurred, and I couldn't help but wonder if I was losing a part of myself in the process. The following day was an avalanche of chaos. I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing incessantly, notifications flooding in from every direction. Friends, family, and acquaintances reached out, their messages a mix of shock and sympathy. I had become the unwitting star of a scandal that had erupted overnight, and I was still grappling with the reality of what I had set in motion. I could already feel the tension building in our home. Sarah hadn't come home the night before. I suspected she had chosen to stay at a friend's place, likely seeking solace after the news broke. The irony was not lost on me. Her escape from the fallout was a direct result of her own choices. My heart raced at the thought of her reaction when she finally returned. Would she confront me? Would she deny everything? The possibilities swirled in my mind, each one more anxiety-inducing than the last. By midday, the media storm was in full swing. I turned on the television, and there it was, footage of Ryan being hounded by reporters outside his production office, his face a mask of shock and anger. The clips rolled on repeat, showing Sarah's name trending on social media, the headlines growing more sensational by the minute. I felt a twisted satisfaction watching it all unfold, but it was quickly overshadowed by the reality of my own actions. Around 3 in the afternoon, I heard the front door creak open. My heart dropped as I turned to see Sarah standing there, her expression a mix of disbelief and fury. She looked disheveled, as if she hadn't slept in days. I braced myself for the confrontation, knowing it was coming, but nothing could have prepared me for the tidal wave of emotions that followed. "Mark," she shouted, her voice laced with anger, "what the hell have you done?" I stood there trying to keep my composure as she advanced toward me, her eyes blazing. "You think this is some kind of game? You've ruined my life." "Ruined your life?" I shot back, my voice rising. "What about my life, Sarah? You betrayed me with that. That man." Her face twisted in pain, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of guilt in her eyes. "You don't understand. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I was going to tell you." "Tell me," I scoffed. "You think that would make this any better? You've been lying to me for months." She fell silent, the weight of the situation crashing down on us both. I could see the realization of her own betrayal settling in, and for a moment the anger that had fueled me began to waver. But then I remembered the way she had looked at Ryan, the joy that had replaced the love we once shared. I steeled myself against the creeping doubt. "Why Sarah?" I asked, my voice softer now. "Why him? What did he offer you that I could?" She looked away, her gaze fixed on the floor. "It wasn't just about him. I felt lost. I wanted something different, something exciting. I didn't mean for it to go this far." "Exciting?" I echoed, incredulous. "You think an affair is exciting? You've shattered everything we built together." The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words. I could feel the anger boiling inside me again, but I didn't want to lose control. I had to stay focused on my goal. "You need to understand that this isn't just about you anymore. This is a public scandal now, and you have to face the consequences of your actions." Her expression shifted from anger to desperation. "Please, Mark, don't do this. I can fix this. We can fix this." I shook my head, feeling a mix of sadness and resolve. "You had your chance to fix it when you chose to cheat. I'm not sure there's anything left to salvage." As the weight of my words hung in the air, I watched her crumble. The fierce woman who had confronted me just moments ago was now reduced to tears, and for a brief moment I felt a pang of sympathy. But that sympathy was quickly drowned out by the memories of her betrayal. I couldn't allow myself to forget what she had done. "I'm not going to be the one who takes the fall for this," I said, my voice steady. "You wanted the excitement of a new life, and now you're going to have to deal with the fallout. I'm not going to protect you from this anymore." She looked at me, her eyes pleading. "You're going to ruin me, Mark. You'll ruin us both." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my decision settling heavily on my shoulders. "You did this, Sarah. You made your choice. I'm just making mine." With that, I turned away, unable to watch her anymore. The reality of what was happening began to sink in, and I felt a mixture of relief and dread. I had taken the first step in reclaiming my life, but at what cost? As the tears fell silently from her cheeks, I couldn't help but wonder if I was becoming the villain in my own story. In the days that followed, life spiraled into a whirlwind of chaos. The media frenzy surrounding Sarah and Ryan's affair escalated to dizzying heights. News outlets were relentless, digging for every scrap of information they could find. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications, friends reaching out, questions flying my way, and even strangers on social media weighing in on my personal tragedy. It felt surreal, like I was living in a reality show myself, watching my life unfold in front of an audience that had no idea what I was truly feeling. Sarah and I barely spoke after that initial confrontation. She was engulfed in her own world of crisis management, desperately trying to salvage her image and career. I watched her scramble to control the narrative, issuing statements through her publicist, claiming that she was a victim of circumstance. The irony was almost laughable. She had taken a risk and lost, and now she wanted the world to believe she was the one being wronged. Meanwhile, I found myself grappling with the consequences of my own actions. I had orchestrated this scandal, and while it felt empowering at first, I began to feel the weight of guilt creeping in. I had exposed her to public humiliation, and although she had betrayed me, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was crossing a line I could never uncross. It was as if I was playing a game that had no winners. I spent my nights alone, scrolling through social media, watching the public react to the unfolding drama. I saw people speculating about Sarah's motives, dissecting her every move, and even sharing their own stories of infidelity. The comments ranged from sympathetic to downright vicious, and I found myself caught in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. I was angry at her, but I was also angry at the world for turning our private turmoil into entertainment. One evening, as I sat on the couch staring blankly at the television, my phone buzzed again. It was Claire, the journalist I had initially contacted. I had given her a tip, but I hadn't expected to hear from her again. I hesitated before answering, unsure of what she wanted. "Mark, I need to talk to you," she said, her voice brisk and professional. "The story has taken off and I think there's more to uncover. Can we meet?" I felt a surge of apprehension. What more could possibly be uncovered? I had already laid bare the worst of it, but part of me was intrigued. This was the world Sarah had wanted to be a part of, and now I was being drawn deeper into it. "Fine," I replied. "Where do you want to meet?" We decided to meet at a small cafe downtown, a neutral ground where I could keep my guard up. When I arrived, Claire was already there, her notepad in hand and a determined look on her face. I took a seat across from her and she wasted no time getting to the point. "Mark, your story has resonated with a lot of people. There's a lot of interest in the relationship dynamics, especially with the added layer of Sarah being married. I think there's a bigger narrative here and I'd like to explore it further," she explained. I raised an eyebrow, unsure of what she meant. "What do you mean?" "People want to know how a seemingly perfect marriage can fall apart so quickly. I think you have a unique perspective. And I'd like to interview you," she said, her eyes glinting with the thrill of a new story. The thought of being interviewed felt strange. I had already played a part in this circus, but now I was being asked to step into the spotlight myself. I hesitated, weighing my options. On one hand, I could gain control over my narrative further. On the other, I risked exposing myself to even more scrutiny. "Why would you want to interview me? I'm just the husband," I stated, trying to deflect. "Because you're not just the husband. You're a man who's been wronged, and the public loves a good redemption story. If you're willing to share your side, it could add depth to what's already out there. People connect with personal stories," she encouraged. I leaned back in my chair, considering her proposal. Part of me wanted to take control of the narrative, to share my truth, but another part of me hesitated. What would it mean for my relationship with Sarah? Would it drag her through the mud even more? "Let me think about it," I finally replied, wanting to buy some time to sort through my feelings. As I left the cafe, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing at a crossroads. I had already set the wheels in motion. Now, I had the chance to either deepen my involvement or step back and allow things to unfold as they would. The thought of stepping further into the limelight scared me, but a part of me yearned for the validation, the chance to reclaim my narrative and tell my side of the story. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I thought about Sarah and the life we had shared, the love that had once been so vibrant. I couldn't help but wonder if I was losing myself in this quest for revenge. Was I becoming the very monster I had sought to expose? In the end, I realized that I needed to make a decision. I couldn't just sit back and watch my life unravel without taking action. I had to confront my feelings and decide what I wanted moving forward. The question remained: would I choose to fight for my truth, or would I let the storm pass and let the chips fall where they may? The next few days were a blur of conflicting emotions and mounting pressure. I found myself packing the apartment, contemplating Claire's offer. The idea of being interviewed was both thrilling and terrifying. On one hand, I could finally tell my side of the story, shed light on the reality behind the headlines. On the other, I risked dragging Sarah deeper into the public eye, a place she had clearly sought but had now become a nightmare for both of us. As I weighed my options, I couldn't escape the feeling that I was at war with myself. Part of me craved revenge, wanted to see Sarah suffer the consequences of her betrayal. But another part of me was haunted by the memories of our happier times, the moments that had made our marriage feel like a partnership. I had to remind myself that the woman I had loved was still in there somewhere, buried beneath the rubble of her choices. Eventually, I made up my mind. I would agree to the interview. I needed to shed light on the truth, to reclaim my narrative in a way that would resonate with others who had experienced similar betrayals. I knew that my story could serve as a cautionary tale, a reminder that love could turn to ashes in the blink of an eye. I reached out to Claire and set up a time for the interview, my heart racing as I did so. When the day arrived, I felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. I dressed carefully, wanting to appear composed and confident. I arrived at the studio where Claire had set up the interview, and as I walked in, I was struck by how professional everything felt. Cameras, lights, and the hum of equipment surrounded me, reminding me that I was stepping into a world I had only watched from the sidelines. Claire greeted me with a warm smile, but I could see the determination in her eyes. "Thanks for doing this, Mark. I think your perspective will add a lot to the conversation," she said, leading me to the set. As the cameras rolled, I felt a rush of adrenaline. Claire began with some standard questions, asking about my life before the affair, how I had met Sarah, and the foundation of our marriage. I answered as honestly as I could, trying to articulate the love that had once flourished between us. But as the conversation turned to the affair, my emotions began to surface. I spoke about the pain of betrayal, the feelings of inadequacy that had washed over me as I discovered Sarah's infidelity. I shared my journey from victim to vengeful architect of a scandal, and as I spoke, I felt a cathartic release. It was my chance to voice my hurt, to share the truth that had been buried beneath layers of shame and anger. "Mark, do you think that exposing Sarah and Ryan has made you feel better?" Claire asked, her tone probing yet gentle. I paused, considering my answer. At first it felt empowering, like I was taking control of a narrative that had spiraled out of my hands. But now I'm not so sure. I've seen the fallout, the pain it's caused both of us. It's hard to reconcile the satisfaction of revenge with the reality of what it's done to our lives. As I spoke, I could see the empathy in Claire's eyes. She was not just a journalist. She was a woman trying to understand the complexities of love and betrayal. The interview continued, and I found myself opening up more than I had anticipated. I talked about the dreams we had shared, the life I thought we were building together, and how quickly it all came crashing down. When the interview concluded, I felt both drained and relieved. I had shared my truth, and while I knew it would come with repercussions, I felt a sense of closure. I had taken a step toward reclaiming my identity, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope that I could move forward. As I left the studio, my phone buzzed with notifications once again. I had expected the media to pick up on the interview, but I hadn't anticipated the flood of messages from friends and family. Some expressed their support, while others were unsure how to react. I felt the weight of their expectations and concerns, but I steeled myself against the tide of opinions. I had made my choice, and I was ready to face whatever came next. That evening, Sarah returned home. I had braced myself for another confrontation, but this time, I felt a sense of calm. I had shared my truth, and I was no longer the man who would cower in fear of her reactions. "Mark, we need to talk," she said, her voice softer than before. I nodded, ready to hear what she had to say. "I saw the interview," she continued, her eyes searching mine for a reaction. "I can't believe you went on national television to air our dirty laundry." "I didn't want to," I replied, my voice steady. "But I needed to tell my side of the story. You've made your choices, and now I'm making mine." Her expression shifted, a mixture of anger and sadness. "Do you think this is going to make things better? You're just dragging us both through the mud even more." "Maybe," I admitted, "but this is my truth, Sarah. I won't hide from it anymore. You chose to have an affair, I chose to expose it. This is the reality we live in now." Silence enveloped us, and I could see the conflict swirling in her eyes. I had expected her to lash out, but instead she seemed to deflate. "I know I messed up. I thought I could fix things before they got out of hand, but I was wrong. I never wanted it to come to this." I felt a pang of sympathy, but I quickly pushed it aside. "You made your choice. Now we both have to deal with the consequences." As the weight of our words hung between us, I realized that we were both lost in this tangled web of betrayal and regret. The path ahead was uncertain, and while I had taken steps toward reclaiming my narrative, I knew that the journey was far from over. The days after the interview felt surreal. The media continued to spin the story, amplifying every detail of the affair, and I found myself at the center of a storm I had helped create. I had shared my truth, and while it felt liberating at first, it also brought a wave of unwanted attention. I was no longer just Mark. I was the man whose wife had cheated on him with a reality TV producer. As I navigated this new reality, I tried to focus on what mattered most: my own healing. I found solace in writing, pouring my emotions into words that had once felt too painful to articulate. I wrote about love, loss, and the complexities of betrayal. The act of writing became my therapy, a way to process my feelings and regain a sense of control over my life. But the fallout from the scandal was inescapable. Sarah and I had fallen into a pattern of avoidance. We shared the same space but lived in different worlds, each of us grappling with the consequences of her choices. I could see her struggling to maintain her image, her career hanging in the balance as the media scrutinized her every move. It was a world she had sought, but now it felt like a prison. One evening, as I sat on the couch typing away, Sarah entered the room. Her expression was different this time, vulnerable and weary. "Mark, can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I set my laptop aside, surprised by her tone. "Sure," I replied, bracing myself for another confrontation. "I've been thinking about everything," she began, her hands trembling slightly. "About us, about our marriage. I know I've hurt you and I can't take that back, but I want to try to fix this. I want to be better." I studied her, searching for sincerity in her eyes. "You want to be better after everything that's happened?" "Yes," she said, her voice steadying. "I never meant for it to go this far. I thought I could find something outside of our marriage that was missing, but I was wrong. I see that now." I felt the walls I had built around my heart begin to crack. "You think words can fix this? You've shattered my trust. It's not that simple." "I know," she replied, tears glistening in her eyes. "But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn your trust back. I want to go to counseling to work through this together. I miss you, Mark." Her words resonated deep within me, stirring a mix of emotions I had tried to suppress. I missed her too, the woman I had fallen in love with, the partner I had once cherished. But the scars of her betrayal ran deep, and I wasn't sure if I could ever fully forgive her. "Counseling," I repeated, contemplating the idea. "You think that's enough to fix what's broken?" "It's a start," she said, her voice filled with hope. "I know it's going to take time, but I'm willing to put in the work. I want to show you that I can be the wife you deserve." I took a deep breath, weighing my options. Part of me wanted to shut down, to walk away and never look back. But another part of me yearned for reconciliation, for the chance to rebuild what had been lost. I had spent so much time focusing on revenge and exposing her that I hadn't considered the possibility of healing. "Okay," I finally said, my voice steady. "I'll consider it. But know that this isn't going to be easy. Trust doesn't come back overnight." "I understand," she replied, relief washing over her features. "I'm ready to do whatever it takes." As we sat there in silence, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. Perhaps this was the beginning of a new chapter, one where we could confront our demons together. It wouldn't be easy, and the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I was willing to try. In the weeks that followed, we began attending counseling sessions. The process was painful and raw, peeling back layers of hurt and resentment. We explored our past, the cracks that had formed in our relationship long before the affair. It was uncomfortable, but it was also enlightening. I learned about Sarah's struggles, her insecurities, and the pressures she had faced. She learned about my feelings of inadequacy, my fears of losing her, and the impact her betrayal had on my sense of self-worth. Slowly, we began to rebuild our foundation, brick by brick. There were setbacks, moments of doubt and anger, but through it all, we communicated more openly than we ever had before. We learned to listen, to empathize, and to confront the issues that had led us to this point. As time passed, I started to see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with, the woman who had been lost beneath the weight of her choices. It was a long journey, but we were both committed to making it work. I realized that while I had sought revenge, what I truly craved was healing, healing for myself and for our marriage. In the end, I discovered that life is rarely black and white. It's a tapestry of choices, consequences, and the messy reality of being human. I had exposed Sarah's infidelity to the world, and while it brought a sense of closure, it also opened the door to a new beginning. As I looked back on the tumultuous journey we had endured, I found solace in the fact that sometimes, even amidst betrayal and heartbreak, there is a chance for redemption. Together, we could forge a new path, one built on honesty, understanding, and a renewed commitment to each other. In the end, I learned that love, while fragile, can also be resilient. It takes time, effort, and a willingness to confront the darkest parts of ourselves. But if we are brave enough to face the storm, we can emerge on the other side, stronger and more united than ever before. And so, as the sun set on a new day, I felt a sense of hope blooming within me. Our story wasn't over. It was only just beginning.